A recording has been started. Hello. Um, Welcome to the, what did Chase call it? The Happy Martian Dragon Hammer Funtime Cast?
Yeah, something like that.
um, I'm Cuculix, or Danii. I'm one of the players here at Minneapolis, and mainly at Fantasy Flight Game Center. I have with me here our co-host for this particular stream, Andy Ockhammer. What's up?
Not much. How you doing today?
It's alright. So tonight we're going to be attempting to shoutcast a set of 4 games. We'll see if we get them all. Uh, that were recorded on Friday's tournament at Fantasy Flight. It was a sealed event, and it's all captured from the perspective of our. Well, you guys probably all know him because this is his channel, right? Chase Peterson, aka Drake. You're in one of these games, Andy.
Yes, I am. I'm actually the first game up.
Yeah. Did it go well, do you think?
I don't really think so. I mean, what can you ever say?
So it was a sealed event, and that means the decks that we were going in with were completely a mystery to both players. They knew their own decks, of course, but you had no idea what you were coming up against. You had chatted a bit before the round with Chase, but I hear that you had a secret, Andy.
Oh, definitely. As I say, it'll come out there of what exactly happened. But and I'll tell you what, with sealed, a lot of us always kind of talk beforehand about our decks, but we're never very specific. Just if we're excited about it, what we think is going to happen, just so that we can make sure that everybody's kind of in the unknown when we go to play.
Mm-hmm. Yes, a difference between sealed and Archon is that in Archon you do get to look at each other's cards, and in sealed, or your Archon card, your deck list, whereas in sealed you do not. So secrecy is folded into it. So why don't we start the gameplay? How's that?
All right, sounds good.
Transition over. Boop. And we're starting now. So I've got it up on the screen here. Chase is also configuring the recording with Azalea's mouse. Is that how you say her name, Azalea?
Yes, I believe they call her Zale, something like that.
Azalea?
Zaylee, there you go. That was it.
I met her once. She was really lovely.
Yeah, no, I played a couple rounds over at their house one day, and we played together. I had a great time.
That was when he was doing the tournament, right?
Yeah, that big sealed Iron Man all day long tournament.
How did that one go?
It was a lot of fun. We did have a good time. Um, we ended up having to have somebody retire a deck in the middle of the game because they won 6 games straight. But other than that, it was a good time.
Looks like you're both getting set up here on the video feed.
Yep, I'm gonna be at the top. Chase is always gonna be at the bottom here.
Oh, you're all still shuffling your decks. We've got a little bit of time to
Yeah.
fill. So, what do you think that players make more of a difference than the deck, or what? What would you tell us about the differences between sealed and Archon in terms of what to expect?
Well, I mean, I think the decks are gonna have some sort of play in it. I mean, if a good player gets a really, really horrible deck, they're not gonna do well. But if a good player gets a mediocre deck, they still may do fairly well because the player does have some effect into how each one of these decks are played.
In this particular replay, since you're in it, you can be very judgmental about your own decision making.
Yes, I'm afraid of what exactly I'm going to be able to say about my own plays. So
Well, hindsight is 2020, and it is not our objective here to be too judgmental about the plays, but we do want to provide some insight into maybe what the players are thinking.
yep,
So on my stream, the dice roll just went off.
yep. Looks like Chase won the dice.
Indeed. So, player who goes first in the game, of course, draws 7 cards in order to play one and give the second player something to respond to. What are your thoughts about your opening card? What do you look for?
Personally, what I look for is I want to see something that I don't necessarily want to see till like the end of the game, middle of the game type stuff, where my big board clears. If I see those in the opening hand, I don't really want them. Um, I'm looking more for something that I can just get out there, maybe get some amber right away, get some creatures on the board.
Yeah, I see that you've mulliganed in this one, so that was probably similarly the case.
Yes, and actually, I was gonna say, I kind of was trying to play because I knew the recording was going on a little more open with my hand to maybe we can see it.
Yes,
Um,
we do get some useful peeks at it.
yes,
Jace kicking it off with a succubus.
yeah, that's always a good card to see at the beginning because your opponent doesn't have anything on the board, so they're gonna be stuck with 5 unless they can kill it outright with something.
Seems that you did not. You followed it up with a Brobner turn, playing a Fire Spitter and a Headhunter. Fire Spitter, a card that when it attacks does 1 damage to everything on the field. Headhunter being a card that attacks to gain you 1 amber. Chase placing a Snufflegator on the field, but giving Way of the Bear, which gives it Skirmish.
It gives it assault 2, so
Oh,
you get to do 2 damage beforehand. Since Snufflegator already has skirmish, that actually makes it a very
right, right.
good
I was thinking Way of the
attacking.
Wolf.
Yes,
Way of the Bear is Assault. Right, because it's like an ancient bear that way.
exactly.
He's
Let's
also played a
see.
Fog Bank so that you're not able to take out the Succubus or the Snufflegator using direct attacks on this turn.
Yep. So then once again, I'm stuck with 5 cards in my hand instead of the 6. He gets tricky like that sometimes. I'm trying to see what I've got going on in my hand, and I don't think I really know what I want to do at this point.
You're deciding to go with Untamed, playing Hunting
Yeah.
Witch with a Halakor.
Yes.
So that
I
Halakor, it gives Skirmish to itself, or whatever's on the edge, so currently itself and the Headhunter.
Yep, gives him skirmish. And I'll say, yeah, and then I fog banked to have him try not to take out my hunting witch with my mimicry.
Yes, a very valuable card, Hunting Witch. Much like the Succubus, a priority target for Chase to get rid of as soon as possible, because the longer that it's out there, it's just going to keep doing damage to Chase's hopes at winning the game. So because he can't fight back at the moment, because you've used Mimicry to get his Fog Bank cloned, I believe that what he does here is he just develops his board state more with Mars. Yeah.
Yes.
But I was interested to see that he makes a weird decision here, well, weird according to me, of placing his ray gun on his Mind Warper. Mind Warper
You
wants
know,
to take an action to use its effect, and the ray gun would not trigger from that action. If he had put it on Megamouth, it wouldn't have had Elusive to detect it, but was
yeah,
maybe more effective that way? I don't know.
yeah. When I saw that play, I thought it was kind of strange they didn't put it on a Megamouth as well. But
I've been talking with him about it during our ride to a Monday Night League, and one of the things that I mentioned to him was that maybe if he was planning to go Mars again, he could have just held it in his hand instead of playing it at all.
this is true.
So here you're using that skirmish on the Headhunter to knock out one of Chase's cards and not take any retaliation. You've cleared the problems that he set up for you. Were you concerned about this Mars board?
I was, but I believe the other two were more priority because I couldn't really get to the Mind Warper with just the one Headhunter being ready. I wanted to get rid of something valuable, and I really wasn't too worried about the Megamouth with getting the other non-Mars creatures off.
Of course, of course. I see. So here, I'm not sure if he was planning to end up in this situation or not, but he does end up going Mars again. Puts down the Mother Gun. So at this opportunity, he could have played a Ray Gun and it would have been a little safer that way. He ends up reaping with the Mind Warper and reaping with the Megamouth. So
Yes,
either way, wherever the Ray Gun was, he would have got the 2 Ember, but he could have got 2 Ember plus having stolen one of those from you.
exactly. Yeah, he could have used the actual ray gun the same way, except for he
on
would have
Mega.
been able to capture onto my own creature to get an extra amber.
And it's always little things like that that add up over the course of the game that are like hindsight is 2020. It's very obvious to us, but I'm sure at the
Yeah.
time he was thinking about a lot of things. Speaking of which, a little mistake happens here. You've played Save the Pack, but because you accidentally placed the +1 counters on your fire spitter, you didn't realize it was damaged.
Yes. Yes, I completely missed that.
Those are +1s, right?
Yeah, those are +1s instead of my damage counters. Well, I just had grabbed the wrong counters from the get-go.
Who made those counters?
Those counters are. Oh, I wish I could remember. Art of War, I believe. Studios, Art of War Studios.
The mistake doesn't end up mattering at all, of course, because what Chase does on his turn, as we're going to see in a moment here,
Alright. We're gonna go Untamed.
he goes Untamed.
Play the Common Cold.
The Common Cold to put a little damage on everything. Common Cold does 1 damage to all creatures with the option of destroying all Mars creatures outright.
Destroy each elusive creature. Going to play Mimicry.
And here's what I was talking about. He plays Mimicry, the ever flexible, ever versatile Mimicry card, to play your own Save the Pack against you, now that he's damaged everything with Common Cold. And here's where you both realize that actually the Fire Spitter was supposed to have damage on it.
Those are wrong counters. I know what you meant.
So now the board is nice and clear. No one has any threats. Time to set up again. Take another run at it.
Yep, and we are both sitting at a solid key. He's got me a little bit on amber, but things can change.
Horseman of War.
And there's the reveal.
There's the reveal. A great moment shared by both players.
Justice for what?
I was saying, if you were paying attention early on, but I had gotten the Horseman of War in my opening hand, and that was, I think, one of the cards I didn't really want to see because I didn't want to play it by itself, which I ended up having to play by itself anyway.
Granted, but at least unlike the other Horsemen, the Horseman of War has no reoccurring effects and unremarkable stats, so potentially the best of them to just put down and forget.
It's true.
Dominator Bobble.
So Chase here needs to build a new board. He's going Dis,
Life Ward gaining 1. Mind Bar.
plays a Mind Barb, which is going to snipe a card out of your hand.
What you think it was? I thought it was something else.
And the card he ends up getting is another Save the Pack,
Save me this card.
Yep.
Yeah.
which I believe you mentioned here in the video that you're happy about because you didn't want that.
Yeah, no, I didn't want it at the time. It was my only untamed card in my hand, and I wasn't in. It's one of those cards that's difficult to use, in my opinion, unless you can get something where you can get a whole bunch of small damage on stuff.
And it does come with chains, is that correct?
Yes, you get a chain for playing it.
So between that and the Succubus, you've been chained, you've been down a card for most of your turns here.
Yes.
Does that have a huge impact, would you say?
I'd say it does, especially when you start getting multiples of where you're down to like 4 cards or even the 5 cards. That one card every turn for several turns in a row can definitely stunt your play.
Right, that's the difference between you playing out all of the Horsemen versus just having War, I guess.
Exactly.
Mars.
We can peek your hand here. I believe you're holding Death already. The Horseman of Death.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll show you Martian Hounds. Okay. Martian Hounds are fun.
Here's another interesting decision from Chase. So he uses the Mother Gun to show you 1 Martian Hounds and uses that to kill off the Horseman of War. And he proceeds to play 3 Mars creatures, right?
Yes.
So what he could have done here is he could have played a Mars creature, then used the Martian Hounds to put some +2 counters, put a +1 and a +1 on a Mars creature from the damaged Horseman of War, and then use, I don't know, like another one of these creatures to still shoot with the Mother Gun. Instead, he's holding on to that Martian Hound.
Yeah, he could have actually used the mother gun, showed his 4 cards, put a couple damage onto Lady Max, and then get 2+1 counter, or 2,
It would have been 4 in total.
yeah,
4
yeah,
plus
4
1.
in total. And if you've thrown that on, say, one of these Dominators, that could have been disastrous.
Indeed. So why is he holding on to it, I wonder? I mean, right now it doesn't have a use. Was just maybe just a misplay, or was he saving it as a battery for future mother gun shots?
That's a good question. Maybe he was trying to get more of an optimal play with more damaged creatures on the board.
Could be. But I don't think it's gonna matter, because of course this board state is not acceptable, is it?
Let's go.
2 Dominators surrounding a by.
Yeah, no. It's definitely nothing I wanted to see.
So you play Coward's End. That takes away all undamaged creatures, including Lady Maxine.
Yeah.
Does that one come with chains too?
That's actually a big one. That's a 3-chainer. So here I am sitting at 5 cards again. So I've played with 5 cards pretty much this entire game, and I don't even know if I realized it when I was playing.
Now another interesting decision coming up here. Both players now reduced to nothing, gotta rebuild their board state. But what Chase chooses to do is he goes Untamed. He's gonna drop down some cards. Grasping Vines can't get its effect. It plays off of artifacts. Word of Returning, I believe, does damage to things that have captured Amber.
And then returns it.
Yeah. And he just plays those for the Amber so that he can get off a Key Charge. Now, Key Charge actually costs him 1 Amber to play it. He had to get to 7 so that he could forge at 6. If you had nothing that was going to interfere with his ability to capture, he could have just thrown away the Key Charge and kept his 1 Amber. Is that not so?
That is true.
And did your deck have... I mean, he couldn't have known whether or not you were going to interrupt in any way. But what... Well, I mean, would you have made the same decision? Do you prioritize getting the key locked in versus making progress?
You know, I think that I would have probably made the same decision, get that key, just because there are so many things that can mess with your keys, and now this puts the pressure on your opponent. Okay, I have 2 keys, you have 1.
And there's no going back now. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Death comes out. We get Horseman of War back with Sergeant Ezekiel. And Chase makes the curious decision to examine your discard here. Always a worrying thing that happens. Because what is he looking for? What is he scheming?
Yeah, I always get worried when somebody asks for my discard pile, because maybe there's a Mimicry, but he already used his Mimicry, so I'm like,
More Mimicry?
what exactly? Yeah, more Mimicry.
And what did you play that he might want?
Exactly. Or what is he going to try to purge out, or something along those lines?
Now we get to find out later on in this video what exactly Chase was peeking for, and it was pretty sneaky. But we'll talk about that when it comes up.
Untamed. Yep. Chota. Yeah, you can call.
Plays Chota had no Amber in his pool at the time, so Chota couldn't cost him anything. Chota is much like Key Charge, is it not? Reduces
Yes,
you by 1 Amber?
Reduces you to 1 Amber, and then you can forge. And I actually thought that was kind of strange play when I saw it, except for the fact that I knew he wasn't going to lose the 1 Amber. I maybe would have held on to it just in case I could have forged another out of turn, because that could be disastrous.
And that's one of the hard things about watching this looking backwards on a game, is because it could have gone so very differently, so many divergent paths depending on what house you choose and how the fights roll out, what gets wiped that you couldn't have predicted was going to get wiped.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like right now I'm up to a check 6, and I finally shed the last chain again. Let's see if I can go without chaining myself up some more.
Jace, now 1 Amber ahead. You have 6 in your pool, so that's essentially a second key. but way behind in board. So Chase needs something to
Mother gun.
level this out a bit.
I'm going to show you 4 Mars cards.
Choosing a Mars does a shot of 4 damage.
Yeah, we're gonna hit fantastic. Horseman of War. Horseman of War? 4?
Still holding on to those Martian Hounds, but Mother Gun only allows you to do the one big shot. You can't divide it amongst targets.
I'm gonna discard EMP Blast. Okay.
Throws away EMP Blast to avoid taking out his own Dominator Bubble and Mother Gun. And then plays the cards that he revealed. Zorg, Grabber Jammer, and now plays that Martian Hounds that he's been hanging on to.
Sure. Those are +1 power cards.
Yep.
Okay.
So Zorg and Grabber Jammer are both kind of priority, right? Because Zorg, if he gets unstunned and gets going, is a huge problem.
Yes, and right now I think Grabber Jammer is really the problem, is because now he has stopped me from forging that second key.
Yeah, it's the more immediate threat for sure.
Definitely.
But here you want like a board wipe, right? You don't want to run your guys into Zorg because it's gonna take all of them.
Play Horseman of Pestilence, deal 1 damage to.
And what you end up doing here is you throw away the Spirit's Way.
It's the shield.
That, I believe, destroys all creatures of 5 or higher. And so that would have taken out both of your horsemen, but also the Zorg and the Grabber Jammer.
Yeah, and I think it's actually 3 or higher, and it would have been a board wipe, basically.
It's 3 or higher? Wow.
Yeah, it's...
So, yeah, that's everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and unfortunately, this deck, I mean, with the Brobnar creatures and the Sanctum creatures, I mean, everything I have is pretty much 5 or higher, so it's kind of, or 3 or higher. It's kind of a rough card in the deck.
So rather than wipe it all down, what you've decided is to fight him. You want to try and salvage some of your board here. You've got a... Is that Way of the Wolf this time?
Yes, that is Way of the Wolf, so it gives him scrimmage.
So
Shield
using
got
a
hit by. Oh, you're right.
skirmished Horseman of War on the Grabber Jammer to put some damage onto it, but it's not quite enough because of the Hounds. You're gonna have to follow it up with something if you want it dead.
Ezekiel will.
You decide to bravely use Sergeant Ezekiel. He'll give his life for the cause.
Yeah, you know, talking about this afterward, I almost wish I would have played a Spirit's Way to just wipe the board.
I suppose you could have reaped 4 and then done it.
Yeah, that probably would have been the proper way to do it.
However, he ends up not using that Zorg as far as I recall. So you got rid of the problem, and you kept your board intact.
Yeah, and seeing had I left that Grabber Jammer out there and just reaped, well, if I didn't clear the board, but that Grabber Jammer would start capturing, and then it starts getting bad. Yep, here I'm checking my deck list again, looking for some way out.
Well, your board is not so bad at the moment. I mean, you've got something to work with. It's really that Chase needs to respond at this point. You're behind a little bit.
Yep.
He decides to go Hand of Dis. And Dis.
Schuler to steal 1. Yep.
Yep, steals 1. So now I'm off my key again.
And Succubus, so that you had 6 cards for a little bit there, I think.
Very, very little bit. Maybe 2 or 3 turns, it seems. Yes, and here he goes, looking through my discard again.
Indeed. He's examining it for one last and fatal time. You can hear Andy in this video asking himself, what in Dis cares about the discards? What's Chase thinking here? I believe you spotted it, too. I believe you spotted it's going to be Control the Weak.
Oh boy. Control the weak. Yep. Untamed.
He chooses Untamed. All that interest in your discards was to estimate how many cards you could use of each house, with each house having 12 in every deck. He uses that to guess which house you might have a weak turn on if forced to pick.
Oh, I was able to forge the key, but hey, I'm giving him a hard time about checking my discard for the Control of the Weak. I tell you what, that's something I never really thought about doing, is checking this, what the discard is to see what's going to be the best house to control the week on. I just kind of always estimated in my head what the board state looks like, but I think I'm going to start using that to use my control the weeks properly.
That is one factor. Another one is what have they played recently? Because it's likely that if they've already dumped all their Sanctum cards, they've probably got a handful of non-Sanctum cards.
Yeah,
That
and
might help.
that's another thing I use for control the week is what have they played last? What is the board state looking like? And what house do I really not want them in?
In this case, his guess was spot on. You were holding 0 untamed cards and had to pass your
Yes.
turn after forging your key. But funnily enough, he does a perfectly fair shuffle. You cut the deck
Yep.
right there yourself.
Yep. It's my
Chase
own
has
fault
shuffled
here.
that Control the Weak back into his deck, 1 of 25 of his remaining cards. He draws 2 and gets it back.
Yep. And there it goes. And I can't do anything. He's going up with his amber, and he's got enough to forge key.
Because of that Control the Weak that you cut for him, by the way. You cut right
Yeah,
to
I
it.
know. I'm aware. I know that was a. I'll tell you what, that was a little frustrating moment to end up not only getting control the week last turn, having it shuffled back in and pulled right off the top. That was a slightly frustrating moment, but
Of course, I
it's
understand.
the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Andy, unable to do anything once again, shows Chase what
Yeah.
cards he had in hand as they talk about what they maybe could have done about that situation. And that's the end of round 1. So looking back on your plays, did you see anything worth mentioning?
Really, it was kind of just what we were discussing. I think that Spirit's Way actually would have been a very good move if I would have reaped with everything. And since I think it was the Horseman of Pestilence out of time, possibly put some damage on some stuff and then just clear it. I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably where the big swing would have been if I would have played that properly.
The big
Or not
fork in the
properly,
road?
but differently. Yeah, and I actually didn't see that until looking back at it. I would have never tried to think about doing something like that unless we talked about it here.
All right. Well, it was a very interesting and unique round. A lot of them are. Coming up, we've got more. So for chapter 1, I think that'll do it for this recording.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next one.